At 2:17 a.m., my phone lit the ceiling blue, and a calm voice said my wife had been pronounced dead an hour ago. I was still holding the phone when I turned my head and saw her sleeping beside me, mouth parted, one hand under the pillow the way she always did when the room ran a little cold. "Sir?" the voice asked, patient and distant, as if calling across water. "We need you to come identify." And then her full name, her date of birth, the address that matched the mail on our kitchen counter. I sat up too fast. The mattress tilted. She shifted and made that small sound she makes when deep sleep brushes against waking. Alive sounds are different from memory sounds. This wasn't a live sound. "Where?" I said, because smaller words are steadier. "Where did you find her?" The dispatcher read something from a screen. The service road near the river underpass, a jogger, a wallet, the ID tucked behind a grocery store loyalty card. "I think you have the wrong number," I said, staring at my wife's shoulder. "I'm looking at her." A beat of silence and the kind of careful tone people use when speaking to the newly broken. "Sir, an officer will come to your residence to assist you." I turned the phone face down so the light wouldn't wake her and put 2 fingers on her wrist. Warm skin, smooth pulse, the sickle metronome that says, "Yes, not yet." I whispered her name. She didn't answer. I whispered it again. Her lashes trembled. She mumbled, "What's wrong?" The words braid and sleep-heavy. "Nothing," I lied. Because if panic is a spark, lies are a glass of water. "Go back to sleep." I slipped out of bed and stood in the doorway so I could see both the bed and the hallway, as if sight itself could be a barrier. My phone buzzed. A no number, none attached from an officer. "Unit en route. Please remain at the residence." The word "remain" made the hallway feel longer. In the bathroom mirror, I didn't recognize my own face, just a man who had been told one fact and shown the opposite. I splashed water, pressed my palms hard into the sink, then summoned the medicine cabinet to do something with my hands. Her toothbrush was where it always lived, her hair tied around the base of the lotion pump, the soft daily archaeology of a life. I went back to the bedroom, then watched her breathe. People in movies put a mirror under her nose. I didn't. I counted. In for 4, out for 4. The steady tide of a person who did not know she had been declared a ghost. I moved quietly through the house, not searching, not yet, just touching anchors. The sweater seat left from the back of a chair, the plant we kept almost killing and resurrected, the grocery list magneted to the fridge, lemons, coffee, rice, dog food. We don't have a dog, we feed the neighbors when they're late. Everything ordinary, everything rude in its refusal to rearrange itself into a tragedy. Her purse on the entry table. I opened it with the same guilt as reading the diary and found the usual slow confetti. Receipts, Minton, lip balm, a pen with the bank logo. The wallet. I flipped to the clear window and felt my stomach fall. No driver's license, only a blurred library card and the loyalty piece of plastic the dispatcher had mentioned. Either she left her license in some other jacket, or it was exactly where the officer said he was, under a bridge on a stranger. The knock on the door was 3 soft taps, polite, cautious. I froze, then looked at the bed. She was sitting up now, her mess, eyes glazed with sleep and confusion. "Who is it?" Her voice was small in the dark. "Police." And I watched an entire weather system cross her face. The sudden quickness of breath, the hands barred in a blanket, the calculation behind her eyes that wasn't fear, exactly, but a recognition of something that had finally arrived. I stepped into the hall, just swung her legs over to the bed and said, not loud but clear, "Don't let them see me tonight." It landed in the room like a second knock. I blinked. "What?" She shook her head, strands of hair catching the streetlight. Please, if you love me, don't let them see me tonight." Another knock, the kind that says we can wait, but not forever. I felt the shape of the choice and hated both of its edges. "Why?" I whispered. "Because answers can sometimes glue and bricks back into place." Because my name isn't safe right now. Not many, banks talk about that. I mean, someone is wearing it. Borrow, stolen, pick a verb. And she has a piece of my life, and now she's dead, and I've let them see me before we understand why. They'll make me explain things I don't have language for yet. It sounded insane. It sounded like the story people tell when they need a couch to sleep on. It also sounded like the only sentences that matched the facts. I went back to the door and opened it to the shame. I need 20 minutes, I said. The tall officer blinked. Well, we really should. 20 minutes, I repeated, softer, because soft gets through places hard doesn't. He looked at his partner. She looked at the street. Something unspoken passed that had more to do with humanity than procedure. We'll be in the car, she said. Please don't leave. I won't, I lied, and shut the door. In the bedroom, we still like actors who had missed their cues. I wanted to ask 100 questions and also none. Tell me enough to stand next to you. She nodded quickly like a person trying to remember the steps to a dance after the music changes. When the phone rings again, do not use my name. Not the one on the card, not the one in the drawer. For tonight, I am no one. That sentence felt like theft and rescue at once. And tomorrow, I asked. She smiled, small and wrecked. Tomorrow, we go to the river. The phone buzzed again. Another text from the officer. We'll be outside. Take your time. In the reflection of the window's black grass looked like people rehearsing fraud. In an all-white mirror, we looked married. Beside the door, the perch with the missing ID waited like a witness. I stood the same back into place and put my hand on the do not. Not to open, not yet. To confirm the door was real. Behind me, she said my name in the voice he uses when she needs me to be braver than I am. Whatever happens, she said, don't let them write the first version. The house listened. The night linked in, and somewhere under concrete and river smell.
The knock on the door came just after 6 a.m., sharp and cold, like the morning air seeping through the cracks of the old house. It startled me out of a restless half-sleep. My wife, Sarah, was still curled up next to me, her breathing soft, steady, almost childlike. I rubbed my face and shuffled to the door, wondering who the hell could be knocking this early. 2 uniformed officers stood on my porch. Their expressions were unreadable, but there was a stiffness to their posture that immediately set my nerves on edge. "Mr. Caldwell," the taller one asked, his voice clipped, official. "Yes," I said, my voice groggy. "Can we come in?" My stomach dropped. You don't invite cops in at 6 a.m. unless something's wrong. I stepped aside, motioning for them to enter. They removed their hats and stood in my living room like statues. "I'm afraid we have some difficult news," the shorter officer said. "There's been an incident. We have reason to believe your wife, Sarah Caldwell, was found dead early this morning." The words didn't register. They didn't make sense. My wife dead? The image of Sarah sleeping peacefully in our bed upstairs clashed violently with what they were saying. "What?" I said, laughing nervously. There's been a mistake. She's upstairs. She's sleeping. You must have the wrong person." The officers exchanged a glance, the kind of glance that says they've heard this before. "Sir, we understand this is difficult, but her ID was on the body. We're very sorry for your loss." My skin went cold. I could hear my heart pounding in my ears. I turned and ran upstairs, ignoring their calls behind me. Sarah was exactly where I left her. Her chest rising and falling, her hair spilling over the pillow. She stirred as I entered, mumbling, "What's wrong?" in that sleepy voice of hers. I froze. "Sarah?" I whispered. "The police, they said you were dead." She sat up, confused, pulling the blanket around her. "What? That's insane. Why would they?" But then she stopped, because something was off. I couldn't pinpoint it at first, but she looked pale. Not sickly pale, but like someone had drained her color, leaving her washed out. Her pupils seemed slightly dilated, and when she blinked, it was slow, deliberate, almost mechanical. "Stay here," I said, trying to steady my voice. I went back downstairs. The officers looked at me with grim patience. "She's alive," I said, my voice sharp. "She's upstairs in bed. You need to check again. This is some kind of sick mistake." The taller officer shook his head. "Sir, we can show you the body if you'd like. She was identified by her ID and her clothing. She was pronounced dead at 5:07 a.m. I stared at him. My mouth went dry. "Take me," I said. We drove in silence. The roads were wet, reflecting the gray sky. I couldn't stop shaking. They led me into a dimly lit room at the morgue, where a sheet covered a figure on a cold metal table. When they pulled it back, I felt my knees buckle. It was Sarah, my Sarah. The same curve of her jaw, the same birthmark on her collarbone, the same wedding band on her left hand. I stumbled backward, grabbing the wall for support. "That's not possible," I whispered. "She's at home. She's alive. She's—" The officers exchanged a worried look. "Sir, you should sit down." "No," I snapped. "I'm not crazy. She's at home. I woke up next to her. She was breathing. She talked to me." The room spun. I ran out, ignoring their protests, and demanded they take me back home. The entire ride was a blur. My mind was screaming, looping over itself. How could she be dead here, but alive in my bed? When we got back, I burst into the house and sprinted upstairs. The bed was empty. The blankets were perfectly made. Sarah's side of the closet door was slightly ajar, like she just stepped out. "Sarah?" I called, cracking my voice. No answer. The officers followed me in, scanning the room. "Sir, no one's here." "She was here," I yelled. "She's talked to me." The taller cop bent down, picking something up from the floor. It was Sarah's wedding band. She never took it off. And it was warm.
The next morning felt like I was walking through someone else's dream. I made coffee, poured it into the mug she always used, and only then realized what I was doing. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand, a calendar reminder about a meeting she was never going to attend. The smell of her shampoo still lingered in the bathroom. The impression of her body was still on her side of the bed, and yet the words from last night wouldn't stop ringing in my ears. "Your wife has been pronounced dead." I called the police station before I could talk myself out of it. They confirmed what they had told me. Her body was at the morgue, ready for identification. I wanted to scream into the phone that they were wrong, that she was breathing next to me just hours ago, but I hung up instead, my hands trembling so badly I nearly dropped the phone. Logic was collapsing around me like a building with no foundation. When I walked into the bedroom, she was there, still asleep, or maybe pretending. I didn't dare touch her, didn't dare wake her up. She looked perfect, peaceful. Her chest rose and fell softly, rhythmically, like nothing was wrong. I backed away from her like she was a ghost. I started questioning my own sanity. Maybe I was dreaming. Maybe I had a breakdown last night, hallucinated the whole thing. But then I remembered the police officers' faces, the way their flashlights cut through the night, the smell of wet asphalt as I stood there frozen, unable to speak. That was real, too real. By noon, I couldn't take it anymore. I needed answers. I left the house quietly, afraid of waking her, and drove straight to the morgue. The clerk didn't look up when I gave her my name. She just handed me a clipboard. "Sign here." My hand shook so much the signature looked like a child's scrawl. She led me into a sterile room with humming fluorescent lights and a row of covered bodies. The smell hit me first. Chemical, metallic, and final. She stopped at a drawer, pulled it open, and lifted the sheet. It was her. Pale, lifeless, her hair carefully arranged around her face. My knees went weak, and I grabbed the edge of the drawer to steady myself. "Yes, that's my wife," I whispered. The words felt like poison in my mouth. The clerk covered her face again and pushed the drawer back in, expressionless. She said, "I'm sorry for your loss," like she said it 100 times before. I stumbled out of the building, barely making it to my car before the sobs tore through me. I sat there gripping the steering wheel, crying so hard I could barely breathe. She was dead. I saw her. She was gone. But then, who was sleeping in my bed right now? When I finally got home, the house was silent. My stomach twisted as I climbed the stairs, afraid of what I might find. I slowly pushed open the bedroom door. She was there, curled under the blankets, her breathing soft and steady.
I whispered her name, voice shaking. She didn't stir. I stepped closer. Her skin looked warm, alive. Her hair smelled like the lavender shampoo she loved. I reached out, my hand hovering over her shoulder. The second my fingers touched her, her eyes snapped open. She looked right at me, a small, tired smile spreading across her face. "Hey," she murmured, her voice thick with sleep. "Why are you up so early?" I stumbled back, my heart slamming against my ribs. She didn't look like a ghost. She didn't sound like one. She was alive. "You," my throat tightened. "You're here." She sat up confused. "Of course I'm here. What's wrong?" I couldn't answer. I just stared at her, trembling, my mind fracturing into 1,000 questions. Should I tell her what I saw? Should I tell her I just identified her body at the morgue? Did they have her in the freezer drawer downtown where she's sitting here brushing hair out of her eyes? Nothing. A lied, voice barely audible, like just bad dreams. But inside, I knew this wasn't a dream. Something was wrong. Something was terribly, impossibly wrong.
I didn't sleep the rest of that night. I sat at the edge of the bed, watching her breathe. The rise and fall of her chest calm and steady. She was alive, warm, safe. And yet the police report on my phone said she'd been found dead less than 2 hours ago. The timestamp was burned into my mind, 11:32 p.m. It was now almost 3 in the morning. I kept replaying the conversation with the officers in my head. "We're sorry for your loss," one of them had said with that rehearsed calmness they must use 100 times a year. I remembered their serious expressions, the apology, the confirmation that it was her. They had ID'd her body, not just a random woman, her, my wife. But she was right here. Every few minutes, I'd reach out and gently touch her arm just to make sure she wasn't a hallucination. The warmth of her skin was the only thing that kept me from completely losing my mind. At 4:17, my phone buzzed with a notification, a news alert about an unidentified woman found dead near the downtown underpass. No name released yet, but I knew. It had to be the same one. I slipped out of bed quietly, not wanting to wake her. She stirred for a moment, but didn't open her eyes. I stood there watching her, my heart thudding so hard it hurt. If I told her what was going on, how would she react? Would she panic? Would she deny everything? Or did she already know? I went into the living room and sat in the dark, scrolling through every news site I could find. One article finally posted a blurry image of the body bag being wheeled away. I zoomed in, looking for any detail, any clue. The woman's hair was the same color as my wife's, her build nearly identical. The caption confirmed that she was found with no identification, but they were sure of who she was based on what? I needed answers, and I wasn't going to get them sitting here. At 6:02 a.m., I left the house. I told myself I'd just drive by the underpass, maybe see if there were any cops left on the scene. My wife was still asleep, curled up like nothing had happened. I lingered at the door for a full minute, watching her peaceful face. It felt like I was leaving a stranger behind. The streets were empty at that hour. The city felt eerie, like a stage before the actors arrive. When I got to the underpath, there was yellow tape fluttering in the breeze, and a single patrol car parked nearby. I sat in my car, staring at the scene, until a uniformed officer walked up to my window. "Can I help you, sir?" he asked. I swallowed hard. I read about what happened. I live nearby. "Nothing to see here anymore," he said, his tone curt but not unkind. "Just a tragic case. We're still piecing things together." I hesitated. "Do you know who she was?" He gave me a strange look. "Why do you ask?" I stammered something about being concerned for my neighborhood, and he softened a bit. "No ID, but she's been identified through fingerprints. Family's been notified." My stomach dropped. Family's been notified. I was the family. That meant someone had officially told me, that my wife was dead.
I drove home in silence, hands shaking on the wheel. When I walked through the door, she was still asleep, in bed, the morning sun creeping across her face. She looked so peaceful it almost made me angry. I closed the bedroom door softly and sat against the wall in the hallway staring at the floor. None of this made sense. Either someone made a colossal mistake or something was happening, but I couldn't begin to understand. By noon, I'd made up my mind. I had to see the body. I had to look at her with my own eyes. That afternoon, I called the precinct pretending to be a distant relative. I said I heard about the accident and wanted to confirm. After a lot of back and forth, they finally agreed to let me come in. My wife was in the shower when I left her. She smiled at me and asked me if I wanted coffee. It was surreal, standing in front of her while planning to view her corpse. When I got to the station, they led me down a long hallway that smelled faintly of antiseptic and old paper. My heart pounded so loudly I thought they could hear it. "Are you sure you're ready for this?" the attendant asked softly. I nodded. They opened the drawer and I saw her face. Pale. Still. Lips slightly parted. It was her. It was absolutely her. And yet,
The knock on the door at 3 a.m. wasn't polite. It was the kind of pounding that makes your chest tighten before your brain catches up. I stumbled out of bed, heart hammering, and found 2 uniformed officers standing on my porch, their faces drawn tight, flashlights reflecting off the rain that had started sometime in the night. "Are you Daniel Carter?" one asked, his tone clipped, rehearsed. "Yes," I said, my voice sounding distant in my own ears. "Sir, we're sorry to inform you, but your wife, Claire Carter, was found dead tonight. Her body was discovered in a car near the old train yard." The words landed like a fist to my chest. I blinked, trying to process, trying to make sense of sounds that didn't belong together. Claire? Dead? Train yard? "That's impossible," I said, gripping the door frame. "She's asleep. She's here. But when I turned, the bed was empty, sheets crumpled, her pillow cold. I spun back to the officers. She was here. She was here when I went to bed." They exchanged a look I didn't understand. One of them stepped inside, scanning the house. "We need you to come with us, sir. We'll need you to identify her." I stood frozen in the doorway, my brain refusing to cooperate. "No, she's here. You've made a mistake." "Sir," the officer's tone sharpened, "we have her driver's license, her fingerprints. There is no mistake." I grabbed my phone and dialed her number with trembling fingers. It rang once, twice, then silence. No voicemail, no explanation, just the cold emptiness of a dead line. The officers let me out, their radios crackling softly as if the whole world was tuned to a frequency I couldn't hear. The rain soaked my shirt, plastered my hair to my forehead. I barely noticed the drive to the station, barely noticed the stares from other officers as I was escorted through the fluorescent-lit hallways. When they brought me into the morgue, the smell hit me first. Sterile, cold, unnatural. My stomach churned. A sheet-covered body lay on a metal table. The coroner, a tired-looking woman with kind eyes, nodded at me. "Mr. Carter, we need you to confirm her identity." My legs felt like they didn't belong to me as I walked forward. The coroner pulled back the sheet. And there she was, my wife. Claire, her lips pale, her eyes closed, her face serene in a way that didn't belong in this place. I stumbled back, my hand gripping the table for balance. That's her. That's Claire. But even as I said it, something gnawed at me. Her hair was different, too neat. Her face looked softer, rounder. It was Claire, but it wasn't.
She looks different, I said, my voice cracking. The coroner glanced at me with pity. Bodies can change, Mr. Carter. I'm sorry. I stared at the lifeless woman on the table. Everything in me screamed that this wasn't my wife, that this was someone else, wearing her face. When they drove me home, I walked into our bedroom like a sleepwalker. And there she was, Claire, alive, asleep, breathing softly. My heart stopped. Claire, I whispered, shaking her shoulder. She stirred, mumbled, turned over, alive, warm, real. I stumbled back so hard I hit the dresser. She shot up in bed, startled. Daniel, what's wrong? I couldn't answer. I just stared at her, at the woman I had just identified in a morgue 30 minutes ago. My phone buzzed. A message. Unknown number. You should have kept quiet. The blood drained from my face. Claire looked at me, confused and scared. Daniel, you're white as sheet. What happened? I swallowed hard. They said you were dead. She laughed nervously. What? That's insane. I'm right here. I showed her the message. Her smile faltered. Someone was playing a game with us. A dangerous one. And I had no idea if Claire was the victim or the key.
The next morning, I woke up to find her side of the bed perfectly made. Not just empty, made. Sheets tucked in, pillows fluffed, as if no one had slept there at all. My heart pounded as I stumbled out of bed, my mind replaying the surreal chaos of the night before. The cops, their faces pale in the dim light of my hallway, telling me my wife was dead. The body in the morgue, the bag of her things. And yet the woman I loved had been right here, breathing beside me. Or had she? I grabbed my phone. No missed calls, no messages. The house was silent, except for the distant hum of the fridge. I walked through every room, calling her name, softly at first, then louder. Nothing. No sign of her. The front door was locked from the inside, the windows latched. It felt like I'd woken up in someone else's house, one that looked exactly like mine but had been scrubbed clean of our existence. Her purse was gone. The coffee mug she'd left in the sink was gone. Even the photo of us on our honeymoon that always sat on the nightstand, gone. Every trace of her had been erased in the span of a few hours. Panic clawed at my throat. I called her phone again, straight to voicemail. I drove to her sister's place, hammering on the door until she opened it, bleary-eyed. She's dead, her sister whispered, before I could even speak. The police came here too. They told us last night. I felt my knees go weak. I croaked. She was in my bed. Her sister's face twisted in confusion. What? I said she was right next to me. I stopped myself. Saying it out loud made it sound insane. Her sister put a hand on my arm. You should talk to someone. You're in shock. Grief makes us see things. But this wasn't grief. This was something else. I left her house feeling like I was floating, like my feet weren't really on the ground. The streets looked strange, the colors too bright, the edges too sharp. At a red light, I looked in my rearview mirror and saw a woman standing on the corner, her coat pulled tight, her head down. Something about the curve of her shoulders made my stomach drop. It was her. The light turned green. I slammed on the brakes and threw the car into park, ignoring the horns behind me. I jumped out and ran across the street, but by the time I got there, she was gone. No sign of her anywhere, just empty pavement. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat on the couch staring at the door, waiting for her to walk in. I thought about calling the police, but what would I even say? That they had gotten it wrong? That my wife was alive? That she was haunting me while still breathing? At 3 a.m., I heard a noise outside, a soft shuffle of feet on gravel. I grabbed the baseball bat from behind the door and pulled back the curtain just enough to peek outside. She was standing at the end of the driveway. The porch light cast her in a pale glow, her face half hidden by her hair. She didn't move, didn't wave, just stood there staring at me like she was waiting for me to come to her. I opened the door slowly, my head shaking. Sarah? Sarah, is that you? She didn't answer. She walked away, disappearing into the shadows of the street. I ran after her barefoot, the gravel biting into my feet, but when I reached the corner, she was gone again. Just like that. I stood there for what felt like hours, the cold air cutting through my pajamas, my heart pounding so loud I could hear it in my ears. I knew one thing. This wasn't over. Whatever was happening, whoever was pretending to be her, or whatever she'd become, she wanted me to follow. And I was going to.
I barely noticed the passage of time as dawn broke. My living room was bathed in that dull, gray light that makes everything feel lifeless, like the world itself was holding its breath. My wife was still asleep in our bed, or at least that's what my eyes insisted was true. I checked on her half a dozen times, my fingers brushing her hair, feeling the steady warmth of her body. But my heart refused to calm down, my mind playing the same line from the officers over and over. She's dead. Your wife is dead. I wandered into the bedroom again, my bare feet silent on the hardwood. She looked peaceful, so painfully normal. Her lips slightly parted, her chest rising and falling in rhythm. I wanted to believe the police had made a mistake. Maybe it was someone else. Maybe they confused her name, her face, something. But deep down I knew that wasn't possible. The way they looked at me, their voices low and careful, told me this wasn't some mix-up. Something terrible was happening, and I was trapped in the middle of it. I sat at the edge of the bed, staring at her. "Baby, please," I whispered, brushing my thumb across her cheek. She stirred slightly, but didn't wake. That little movement sent a wave of relief through me, but it was fleeting. A sense of dread hung heavy in the air, thick as fog. It felt like I was being watched even though there was no one else in the room. I thought back to the knock on the door hours earlier. The two officers standing there with grim faces, their voices soft like they were afraid to scare me more than I already was. "We're sorry to inform you. Your wife was found dead tonight." They said her name, her full name. They had details, a location, a back alley not far from here. I laughed at first, a short, disbelieving sound. I told them they were wrong, that she was upstairs sleeping. But they didn't look surprised at my reaction. They just looked sad. I hadn't let them in. I had closed the door and locked it, leaning against it as if their words could seep through the wood and drown me. My mind was a swirl of denial, panic, and anger. I'd crept back into our bedroom then, desperate to prove them wrong, and there she was, asleep, breathing. But no matter how many times I checked, that sense of wrongness only grew. I stayed by her side for what felt like hours. Every sound in that house felt amplified, the ticking clock, the wind brushing against the windows, the occasional creak of the floorboard as if someone else was moving around. I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone. At one point, I went downstairs to pour a glass of water. My reflection in the dark window startled me. I looked like a stranger, hollow-eyed and pale. When I returned, I froze at the doorway. The bedroom was dim, shadows pooling in the corners. She was still lying there, but something about her seemed different. Her breathing had stopped. The glass slipped from my hand, shattering on the hardwood. I rushed to her side, grabbing her shoulders. "Wake up, please!" I shouted, shaking her gently at first, then harder. But she didn't move. My trembling fingers searched for a pulse, but all I felt was cold skin. I stumbled backward, heart pounding so hard it hurt. She was gone. No, she'd been gone since those cops came.
That thing lying in our bed wearing her face wasn't her anymore. A scream tore out of me, ragged and animal. The house felt like it was collapsing in itself. I bolted out of the room, slamming the door behind me, tears streaming down my face. I called 911, but my words barely made any sense. By the time the police returned, I was sitting on the stairs, shaking, my head in my hands. They went upstairs, guns drawn. One of them came back down, pale and speechless. The other just looked at me like he wanted to tell me something but couldn't. They didn't find a body. The bed was empty. Sheets perfectly made, as if no one had ever been there. My wife is still missing. That's the official word. Missing. But I saw her. I had